It's just physics that
it is, yeah.
Higher weight vehicles are more dangerous.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Let's Go Together podcast by CAA Atlantic. In today's episode, we're going to talk to David Trueman from the Halifax Cycling Coalition about cycling in Halifax and how that is growing, but also a safety concern, especially with the introduction of micromobility, e-bikes and e-scooters in the Halifax area and across our country. We're going to talk about some of the beautiful spots in Halifax if you are a cyclist or hoping to cycle more or get into cycling. We're going to talk about the app that the Halifax Cycling Coalition has, the cycling guide that helps make cycling more accessible in Halifax. And also, we're going to talk about how designing safer streets and the infrastructure really contributes to the growth of cycling, the usage and uptake of cycling, but also keeping all road users safe.
When you provide people with safe places to travel, then they stay in their lane.
I'm Julia Kent at CAA Atlantic, and I'm your host of the Let's Go Together podcast. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. For Atlantic Canadians, getting around is more than just transportation. It's freedom, connection, and everyday life. The Let's Go Together podcast by CAA Atlantic is about making that journey safer, easier, and more rewarding, with stories, advice, and expert perspectives built for life in this region. I'm your host, Julia Kent. Now buckle up. Let's go together. David, thank you so much for being here, for coming from the Halifax Cycling Coalition. I kind of want to introduce you and how you got here, I guess.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm delighted to be here. And I am aware of how CAA plays a significant role in cycling support with the annual HRM Civic Ride and a well-kept secret that you actually provide support for people on bikes that get stranded. I think that's something we
we'll talk about that.
Should be telling our members about.
We'll talk about it, yeah. But you yourself, so you're the co-executive director of the Halifax Cycling Coalition. How did you get into that?
Well, it's a bit of a story, I guess.
Okay.
I was in Waterloo, Ontario. Well, I spent 20 years in Halifax, then moved to Ontario for work. And when I was in Waterloo, there were a whole bunch of us were always ranting on Twitter, about the cycling conditions and so on. And a very astute woman, Emily Slofstra, said, "Hey, you guys, this isn't curing anything. This isn't helping. So why don't we get together and do something about it?" And we did. We founded Cycle Waterloo Region. And so I was there on the board, the founding board, for a few years. And then we decided to move back to Halifax. And I loved every minute since then. That was about 4 years ago. And I joined Halifax Cycling Coalition before I came.
Yeah.
And there was a note out, that they're looking for a treasurer on the board of directors. So I applied and got the treasurer position.
That's awesome.
And then that was in December 22. And by the time it came to the AGM in May, with a new board of directors, I was elected by the board to be chair.
Oh, fantastic. That's awesome. And okay, so you are co-chair.
Well,
not
actually,
I
was up until this AGM in June.
Yes.
And since then, I've been just chair.
Okay. Got you. Okay. So you are a cyclist.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't get involved in Waterloo if you weren't, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, it hasn't always been that way. Like I cycled since I was a kid. And then my bike got stolen while I was in university. And
Same thing happened to me.
I didn't do much for many years. And then I guess it was about 25 years ago in Halifax, got a bike, started just riding, fairly casually. In Waterloo, at one point we moved 9 kilometers away from my work, and I started cycling every day to work and back. And that's when I really started to get the bug and, got more and more ambitious and wanted to get more and more fit. And eventually I was riding, one trip from Ottawa to Halifax, took 18 days to do that.
You cycled from Ottawa to Halifax?
Yeah. So
that is on another level. In my opinion, that's on another level. That's impressive. I mean, I think it's impressive for people to drive that far, I suppose. But yeah. You did it on a bike.
Anyway, as an advocate, of course, I try to always put myself in the shoes of someone who's reluctant to cycle. Because,
that's me, by the way.
Yeah, that's 60% of the population, by the way. They'd like to cycle, but they don't feel safe.
Yeah.
And so I try to put myself in those shoes rather than the person who has cycled from Ottawa to Halifax.
Yeah, which sometimes is challenging, right? Like if you're a subject matter expert in something, you have to consciously take yourself out of that and put yourself in another person's shoes, which is interesting.
Yeah. I had the recent experience, which has really helped. I have a grandson now who's 18 months old.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. They got a cargo bike, an e-cargo bike, to transport him to daycare each day because driving in traffic would be horrendous. It would take a long time because they do it at rush hour.
Of course.
And so they had this e-cargo bike. My son went away to a conference, and so I volunteered to take him to and from daycare every day. So that puts it in a whole different perspective. When you've got someone else's
little
young
person.
child on the back.
Oh my gosh.
I was so conscious of safety.
Okay, so you just triggered something for me. I know that cargo bike usage and kids as cargo, I guess, our most precious passengers, that is increasing.
Oh, tremendously.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that's interesting.
Yeah, you just see it everywhere. Like when you especially see it at rush hour because, of course, people are taking their kids to daycare or to school. But when I get out at rush hour, I could swear every third bike is a cargo bike with kids on it.
Interesting.
Now, that's just anecdotal, but...
Right. Why would that be?
Well, I think the electric capability has made all the difference because cargo bikes were pretty heavy.
Yeah.
And especially on Halifax hills, that's a big challenge. So I think the fact that they're now electric made a huge difference. But I think it's also just growing momentum. People see the example and it catches on. So it snowballs. We have this wonderful organization called Kidical Mass in Halifax, which is KIDICAL. Obviously, it's a takeoff on critical mass. Yeah. But they have a monthly ride, and it's family-focused. And so you go to these monthly events, and there'll be over 200 people, and almost all of them have cargo bikes with kids on them. Well, then there are slightly older kids riding on their own with their parents beside them and so on. But it's a wonderful, joyful event.
Is that the kind of event you could go to if you want to learn about cargo bikes or transporting children?
Absolutely. And in April this year, they actually had a session specifically focused on that. They had demo bikes for people to try out.
That's fantastic.
But they're always a resource to ask questions.
I would wonder if the price of fuel would contribute to the increase in cargo bikes and transporting children by bicycle.
Yeah, logically it should. Okay. And in fact, there was a survey that came out, back when the fuel prices started to go way up. And it was a Halifax survey, and 14% of those surveyed said they were considering more cycling.
And when I talk about, the CA Atlantic perspective, like I've been with CA Atlantic for, a dozen years or CAA for a dozen years. And our message has always been share the road. Like it's everybody's responsibility to share the road safely. And we have been representatives of the mobile public, however you choose to get around. So pedestrians, walking, public transit, cycling, motorcycles, or cars, or we can talk about trains and cruise ships and air travel as well. But I was just thinking the cost of fuel actually would probably not necessarily just increase cycling, but maybe increase all other non-fuel related traveling, I guess.
Yeah, including transit.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. In our advocacy, we always emphasize that, people should have transportation choices.
Yes, totally.
Whether it's walking or cycling or transit or driving a car. And the beauty of it is that the more people that do the walking or the cycling or the transit, the more room on the road for those who need to drive.
Helps congestion.
Absolutely.
I mean, CA Atlantic has a huge environmental focus. So like emissions and carbon offsets and, like all that kind of stuff is really important to us. So, driving electric or just it's healthy to cycle or to walk or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm,
So that angle as well. So what are you seeing day to day when it comes to cycling in Halifax? Like what are the big things that come to mind?
Well, certainly the numbers are going up year after year after year. There are 13 bike counters embedded in the pavement throughout Halifax, and so we know the numbers. So it's not just
interesting.
anecdotal.
And I didn't know those were there.
Yeah, generally it's about 10 to 15% of growth per year.
Per year,
which means a doubling in 5 years.
Right.
And you see some really interesting phenomena too. When you add a new bike lane, like the one that was put on in Brunswick Street this year, then the numbers go up on all the connecting routes too.
Oh.
So it speaks highly to the idea that the network has to be connected. And that's when we see the huge payoff when it's all interconnected.
And so I lived in Ottawa for 10 years, and it seemed like even, 10, 20 years ago, everyone biked everywhere. But it did not feel the same in my hometown of Halifax. But are you saying that, infrastructure directly contributes to people choosing to cycle?
Absolutely. And in Halifax, we do have a long way to go.
Yes.
We're currently ranked about 70th among cities in Canada.
What? I didn't know that.
Yeah, which is
That's pretty bad.
Horrible.
Yeah.
Now, of course, that
do you know what Ottawa would be?
That reflects the suburban areas too,
right.
where there's very little cycling infrastructure.
Yeah, because in my mind, Ottawa was the gold standard, but I actually don't know. Like, who would be the best in Canada?
Well, I'll probably be really controversial. Montreal, of course, is way up there.
A lot of people cycle. I know that. Yeah.
Victoria, Vancouver, even Calgary and Edmonton are getting right up there now. And in Ontario, Kitchener and Waterloo are way up there.
So we talked about the growth of cycling, how it's becoming more and more popular. And you said that the e-bikes are definitely helping out with that. I have driven an e-bike, and as a non-cyclist, I can say that they are unbelievably helpful. Like all the things I didn't like about cycling were gone when they suddenly introduced pedal assist. It was a townie that I was on.
Yeah.
Anyway, and also micromobility, like in general, e-bikes, but also e-scooters. Do you look at any of that in your line of work?
Oh, for sure. We're interested in all means of personal mobility. And of course, the surge in micromobility has presented some challenges. Just as, really any new technology presents challenges.
Great point.
And, hopefully we don't have sort of a pendulum swinging back and forth in terms of public policy, but that we gradually adapt, useful, meaningful standards and regulations and, just a general culture. Because that's ultimately what drives, the behaviors on the roads and sidewalks.
Yeah, from a safety perspective, I mean, obviously we've always heard and done a lot about cycling, but with the introduction of micromobility like e-bikes and e-scooters, it's just that more prevalent. And in July 2025, CA as a whole commissioned the Traffic Injury Research Foundation to do a study basically to find the gaps, around, like we see it anecdotally. We see, people driving on the sidewalk without a helmet and they're buzzing at 60 miles an hour and the injuries, like hospitals will tell you they're seeing these injuries and that they're more severe, right? Because people are going faster. But I do think that it has happened so fast that regulations and safety rules haven't been able to keep up. I know that shared fleets are safer because they can have those rules, but from a safety perspective, what do you guys see as cycling and micromobility grows?
Yeah, certainly, the growth of our protected, connected network is critical, because when you provide people with safe places to travel, then they stay in their lane.
Yeah.
I'm sympathetic when I see someone on the sidewalk
because they have nowhere else to go.
When it's a terribly busy road. What I emphasize, at least personally, is the strict, hierarchy of vulnerability and respect. So someone walking or with a mobility aid or pushing a stroller is the most vulnerable. And then, the next most vulnerable are people on bicycles and on scooters.
Yes.
And then, of course, the next most vulnerable are people in cars. So it's kind of like, on a downhill ski hill, the faster skier has to yield and take care when they're going around a slower skier.
Yeah.
And it's the same, bicycles absolutely need to give absolute respect to someone who's walking. And that means not only that they're safe, but that they feel safe. But similarly, drivers in vehicles, motorized vehicles, need to give absolute respect to both people cycling and people walking.
And, I said historically, like CAA our message has been share the road. It's everybody's responsibility. But before we hit record on this podcast, you mentioned something that really got me thinking about how the weight translates to, I think you said like the responsibility, right? The vulnerability for sure of that road user. And to elaborate on that, you were saying like a car weighs a lot more than just a person, I guess, or a person on a bike, right? Which is interesting because it is a shared responsibility, but it's a little bit more the responsibility of the person in the less vulnerable, higher weight vehicle, I guess. Yeah.
Let's face it, when a car where you're enclosed in a steel cage
with an airbag.
If it hits someone on a bicycle, then we know who's going to suffer. It's just physics that
it is,
higher weight vehicles are more dangerous. And it actually goes for motor vehicles too.
Yes, it does.
The heavier
like
vehicles,
trucks, for example,
are a greater hazard. And, unfortunately, we see this inflation in the size of vehicles too, which makes it even worse. It's not just the weight, but the lines of sight. When you are in a big truck, you actually can't see a small child in front of you. And SUVs with their high hood height have the same problem, not to the same degree as a big truck. So, I have total respect for commercial users that need to use their big vehicle.
Yes.
That we absolutely need that. But, I get impatient with people that buy big vehicles that don't need them.
Right.
Because they're just increasing the risks on the road for everyone.
Yeah. That's interesting. So we established that, more bike lanes or more cycling infrastructure directly contributes to the growth of cycling. And this is, I think, a win-win in terms of the cost of living, health span, like people's physical activity, congestion, like getting around the traffic that we see more and more of in Halifax. What other benefits would you say? Do you talk about or?
Yeah, actually this ties back to share the road because we talked about respect, and that's part of sharing the road. And the higher burden, of the heavier vehicle, the faster vehicle. But another aspect of sharing the road is actually it's about sharing the road space. And that means wider sidewalks. It means a protected bike lane and possibly somewhat narrower traffic lanes, which all of those things together not only mean that we are indeed sharing the space, but that it is actually, and the studies show this, it's safer for everyone.
If they have, yeah.
Because when you narrow the traffic lanes, people slow down. And
speed is a huge problem, right?
Speed is a killer.
Yeah.
There's no two ways about it.
Yeah.
The difference between being hit by a 30-kilometer vehicle versus 50 is 9 times the risk of death.
Yeah.
So it's it's big. And the other aspect of this that we don't talk too much about is, as a driver, and I do drive too. When you have a protected bike lane at the side with a concrete curb separating the drivers from the bicycles, you feel more at ease. When you have to worry about a very
the 1
vulnerable
meter, yes, 100%. I mean, I slow right down, and I wait until oncoming traffic allows me to kind of go over, because I'm so concerned. I mean, awful fear to have a collision with a cyclist.
And the only additional precaution that the driver has to take then is to make sure, they're checking the right-hand side before they make a right turn.
Yes, that's true. But I also opening car doors and oncoming cyclists, that's a big thing. Check your mirrors. Just check your mirrors. Yes.
Now, what we teach people when we teach safe cycling is do not ride in that door zone.
Right. Stay out of.
Always be at least a meter away from the parked vehicles, because you just never know.
You just never know. No.
And people are uncomfortable with that, but it is in fact much safer to be out there.
It's keeping them in mind for sure. We talked about the little known secret of CAA membership. So what people don't realize, and I just want to mention this because I think it is a lot of people are just CAA members and they don't know this and they happen to cycle. But anyway, when you call for roadside assistance for your car, you can call for roadside assistance in Halifax, because we only have bike assist in Halifax at this time. I believe we may have it in a couple other cities, but I'm not positive in New Brunswick. But you can call for roadside assistance for your bike. If you have an issue and you need to be picked up, we can't fix your bike, but we will pick you up and your bike and take you wherever you need to go, which is great. However, something I mentioned to David before we started recording was CAA has an everyday membership, which is $30 a year. It does not include roadside assistance, but it does include one bike event per year. So they will one time a year come and pick you up. So if you don't own a car, that's a wicked option. And I just wanted to mention that. And I do feel like that's a little known secret. Every event I go to and I mention that, the cyclists are like, what? I didn't know about that, which is great.
I learned about it a few years ago, but
Yeah, it's good. And I think that across the country, they have different variations of that as well. If there's any friends of David's in Waterloo that are watching or listening. I'm sure you'd have some people over there, but yeah. Before we jump back into the conversation, a quick thank you to CAA Atlantic for supporting the show. For generations, CAA has helped Atlantic Canadians stay safe and confident wherever they go, whether that's roadside assistance, expert travel advice, or everyday savings and insurance. If you'd like to learn more about CAA membership and the services available across Atlantic Canada, you can visit atlantic.caa.ca. Now, let's get back to the conversation. So, in terms of what you want to see come out of your advocacy around with the Halifax Cycling Coalition, what would be your wish list?
We really... first and foremost, we want the network to be connected. There are way too many gaps in the network right now. And that diminishes the entire value of the investment. You can only imagine if we had a road network that was just full of dead ends and wasn't interconnected.
That wouldn't
make any sense.
Yes, yes. And when you put it like that,
it doesn't make any sense to have a disconnected bike network, because frankly, if there's one vulnerable area in the network, some brave individuals will traverse that break in the network, but many people will see that as, a no-go. I can't ride my bike because there's a
highway
section
or something. Yeah.
So that's a significant thing. Then we have to take it into the suburbs. Everyone in the suburbs, they deserve transportation choices too. And in fact, they have a much bigger problem in terms of, commuting and getting tied up in traffic. So this would provide them with a great option. And especially with e-bikes, like a 15-kilometer commute is no big deal on an e-bike. So that's another big thing. Then, HRM, as you know, has a lot of rural sections. So we need reasonable accommodation, in the rural sections. And at the very minimum, that means paving the shoulder with a good-sized shoulder. And that, for many people, would provide the link that they can
safely do it.
But also in the rural sections, you might have a small community, and you have a community center or maybe a church. Why shouldn't you be able to cycle to your community center or cycle to your church? So local sections of protected network with longer sections.
That don't exist probably, like right now.
Yeah, not at all. And once again, that also keeps the roads safer for everyone.
Everybody, right. I have to say there's probably a difference, though, because, people that use cycling for transportation and then people that use cycling as an activity, like a leisure, they're probably in different categories. Is the hope that you can, translate those leisure people to transport,
absolutely.
Right?
You know what I say is that recreational cycling is a gateway drug.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, you start cycling just for fun,
right?
And then you realize, hey, this actually works.
Well, especially with e-bikes,
and maybe I'll try once, going to work on my bike.
Yeah,
and then they say, oh, that wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
And of course, it gets easier and easier as you build up your fitness too. And of course, you're doing all sorts of wonderful things for your body while you do that.
Yeah, that's so true.
It's also it's the ultimate in multitasking.
It is. It
right?
is.
You're
working out. You're getting to where you need to go. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're not having to spend time at the gym. You're not having to pay fees for the gym.
Well, and fuel costs and actually. I'm no expert on I'm no physiotherapist, but I know that cycling is one of the best forms of physical activity, in terms of if you have a knee injury or an ankle injury or whatever, right? So it's
with age,
yes,
it's easy on the joints, so it goes well into your old age. Our former chair of Halifax Cycling Coalition, he's in his 80s now, and he's still riding his bike all the time.
Yeah. That's awesome.
The other area that we really need improvement on is, the laws and regulations for the road. And actually, there's been significant progress on that. Fingers crossed. We have a new Traffic Safety Act for the province coming out hopefully in September with a whole new set of regulations. The biggest win, as far as we're concerned, is that it clearly defines vulnerable road users, those who aren't in a steel cage, and provides additional protections and elevated penalties should you have an infraction and it involves a vulnerable road user.
Yep.
Someone walking or cycling. Then you're subject to higher fines. And also in the really egregious cases, the judge has a hook in the legislation to consider additional penalties.
And actually, when we talk about road safety at CA Atlantic, we talk about, we have to have the law, we have to have enforcement of said law, and then we have to change public perception. And I know that vulnerable user thing is really important. Tow truck drivers are also included in that, by the way, and anybody working on the side of the road, which we at CA Atlantic have been lobbying for and are really happy about, very happy about that. But that three-prong approach, that law, enforcing that law, and then changing public perception. I use seatbelts all the time as an example all the time of how of a success story of how that's worked.
And it took almost a generation
exactly.
to really take hold.
But now I'm at the point, like, in my demographic, like we wouldn't even consider driving in a car without a seatbelt, which is interesting. Yeah. Before we hit record, you mentioned something to me that you guys are working on. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
The cycling guide.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So we have an app in Halifax. It's called Cycling Guide, and it's a navigation app.
I can find this in the App Store?
Yeah, it's in Apple and Android stores. And the beauty is that it's not just another app that's targeted at athletes. It's targeted specifically at people who would like to ride their bike more, but are reluctant for whether they need more experience, more knowledge, more support. And what it does is it simply, you put in your destination, it gives you a cycling-friendly route to get to the destination. Now, by cycling-friendly, we mean lower stress, so less exposure to traffic.
Okay.
And we also color code your route. So we say, if you have no exposure to traffic, we'll color it green.
Okay.
If you have just quiet roads, that's blue.
Okay.
If it's a more challenging sort of
Advanced.
Intermediate level road, then it's amber.
Okay. Oh, okay. So there's 4 levels.
And the 4th is a crazy road, and that's magenta. So only the craziest cyclists will actually want to ride on a magenta.
Not me. I will not be going on magenta. That is great. Yeah. Particularly where there's an increase, knowing that that's out there. How have you gotten that out, that this exists, right? Like this podcast obviously is one of the
it's helpful.
Channels.
It started in Waterloo, Ontario, where I was at the time, and we've since launched it in Halifax, in Ottawa, in Sarnia, London, Ontario, and Saskatoon.
Okay, all over the place. Okay.
Where we got the best uptake was in Ottawa, and the reason was because we got lots of mainstream media coverage.
Oh.
So that's the single best way to get the word out.
Okay.
Sadly, we get lots of media exposure in Halifax for the controversy, the conflict, and we don't seem to be able to break through to get media to cover this good news story.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say, first of all, we'll put a link in the show notes to this app. You said, what was it called again?
Cycling Guide.
Cycling Guide. So if you live in Halifax and you cycle, or you want to cycle or cycle more, get Driving Guide. It'll be useful. Okay, well, that's interesting. That's a positive thing that is hopefully increasing or making people feel more safe. Like you were saying, that is the barrier
Exactly. It opens the door to a new segment of people that they may be surprised to find that there are actually decent routes to where they want to go. It finds all the little neighborhood connectors, to put together a route for you.
I'm excited to check that out and see how that will work, because I have 3 kids and they have bikes, obviously, and family bike rides. We have a rack, a Thule rack for our bikes, since we can go places. And that would be fun to find it. I do want to talk about, though. So CA Atlantic for, 10 or 12 years, we have sponsored the annual, you mentioned it, the HRM Halifax Bike Ride. And that is typically at, not always, but typically involves a city park that has a really good bike trail. And there are some beautiful bike trails. And I oftentimes didn't know about them before we had that ride there. Can you talk about some of the good things in Halifax, like for bikes?
Sure.
Yeah.
In terms of recreational bike rides, one of the ones when people are, haven't done a lot of cycling, I suggest riding down and through Point Pleasant.
Beautiful.
And you can go around the perimeter, and it's a nice, quiet off-road ride, and beautiful scenery and so on. Up one level, if you like, is the Colt. The T stands for trail, so it's the Chain of Lakes Trail, and it's just off of Joseph Howe, and it goes up past some of the water reservoirs under Dumbrack, and up through the Bears Lake Park, which you'd be surprised at how scenic it is, even going through the Bears Lake Industrial Park.
Really?
And then it connects up to the Beachville Lakeside Timberley Trail.
Oh, cool.
And keeps on going. And then it becomes the St. Margaret's Bay Trail.
Oh, so that's a nice long one.
Yeah, you can keep going for ages on it.
But that used to be a train?
Yes.
It did. It is the one I'm thinking of.
Well,
okay.
at least the BLT one was train for sure. I'm not sure how much of the Colt Trail itself was.
Cool.
Another beauty is the Salt Lake Marsh Trail.
That was near and dear to my heart.
Oh, it's so gorgeous, and it's so unique.
Oh gosh,
you've got water on both sides of you, and you're just going forever and ever.
So picturesque.
I
mean, I think it took me living in Ontario for 10 years to appreciate that, because growing up, that was just taken for granted. Of course, it's just there. But now I'm like, I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is stunning. Canada's best, right? But
another well-kept secret is the Shubie Park.
Yes.
You can actually, using Cycling Guide, to get a pretty good route up to the beginning of Shubie Park, and then they're compacted gravel trails through the park, and it's once again very scenic.
Oh, that's wonderful.
But moving on to non-recreational routes, just routes to get places. When you have the combination of the new, where they took down the Cogswell Interchange,
yes,
and put in parks and beautiful cycling trails through there that connect up to Hollis Street, protected bike lane. And then you have Cogswell itself has a protected bike lane. So now it's opened up whole new territories to get, from sort of mid-peninsula to right to the south end. And then the addition of Brunswick Street this year is wonderful, because you can come down through the Commons and across Rainy Drive, little bit of Gottingen, all protected, and then get onto Brunswick and go right to the library, and then through the Dalhousie Sexton campus, go even further into the south end that way.
So that's a good one.
Yeah.
Recent, yeah. Well, that's awesome, because I know there are ways. Of course, there's areas to improve, but there's wonderful things to be celebrated too, and we'll take those small wins as we can. Absolutely. Anything as a work, I'm going to finish with some rapid fire questions for you. But is there anything you want people watching or listening to know? What do you want them to take away?
I think the biggest thing is to appreciate this hierarchy of transportation.
Yeah.
And that implies support and respect throughout all the levels of the hierarchy. It's frustrating that we seem to have lost momentum in the sense that there was a ton of support for good cycling infrastructure, and then the dialogue seemed to change. The public dialogue seemed to change. And we'd like to get it back to where, just as in Halifax, 99% of drivers are courteous and respectful.
Yes.
But boy, that 1% causes a lot of trouble, and it makes it dangerous for everyone. The police statistics on collisions in Halifax in 2025, 50% of the collisions with injuries were due to aggressive driving. The police attributed them to aggressive driving. We need to put an end to that.
Oh, big time. Yeah, that is, in speeding and aggressive driving is one of the number one safety concerns we see in CAA polling time and time again. More so actually than distracted driving. although I know that's an issue too, and particularly when it comes to cyclists as well. But yeah, we have to put a stop to that.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think the difference might be aggressive driving is obvious to everyone around.
Yes, that's true.
Whereas distracted driving isn't obvious until the worst happens.
I know. Yeah. Well, that's good feedback for anybody watching or listening. And slow down. Respect all road users and applicable, right, to however they're kind of protected or whatever. So I'm going to end with some rapid fire questions. These are going to be fun, maybe related to cycling, maybe not. I know you're a CAA member, so maybe they'll be related to CAA. But the goal is answer in as few words in as few words as possible. First thing that comes to mind, that's the goal. Okay?
Okay.
All right, here we go. So bike lane or multi-use trail? Your pick.
In an urban environment, it has to be a protected bike lane.
Okay.
In suburban or rural, multi-use paths are great.
Okay. The best cycling route in HRM, would you say?
Oh, gosh. My favorite recreational route is up the Colt Trail.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I've done the BLT, I think you called it.
Mm-hmm.
I've done that, but not on bike with a stroller. But that's such as my life these days. Although I got to get a cargo bike, apparently. If you were picking a bike, you could only have one. You could only ride one way. I'm assuming you have multiple, but
I do.
you just struck me as that kind of person. If you had to pick an e-bike, a cargo bike, a road bike, or a commuter bike, what would you pick?
For me personally,
Yeah.
the first bike, I guess, would be a road bike. But the answer is different for every person.
It is,
depending on their needs.
Yeah. But for you, road bike. What is one thing that people get wrong about cyclists?
Well, I think it's this perception that it's, middle-aged men in Lycra, athletes. And there could be nothing further from the truth. There's no question there's a big foundation of those people out there. I can no longer call myself middle-aged. But the fact is it's just people in their ordinary lives trying to get around.
Yes.
In an environmentally friendly way that's going to cause less congestion on the road. Yeah. So, I'd like people to recognize the heroes at the side of the road that are, doing their part.
Yep. Oh, yeah, for sure. What is one road safety habit you wish every driver would adopt?
I think that the biggest is just don't even think about that phone. Distracted driving is just wicked.
It is. What I see actually is it's not just the phone anymore, although, of course, that was the original culprit. It's these computers on wheels, essentially, that we have. And it's the entertainment systems and the kid in the backseat and the pets and the food and the personal grooming. And all these things contribute to distracted driving. So that's a great point.
It's the most terrifying thing for me, that idea that someone could be coming up behind you and they don't even see you because they're busy looking elsewhere. That's just terrifying.
Yeah. Your favorite CAA member benefit?
Ooh, well, I actually love that CAA actually will rescue you on your bike.
Yeah.
If you have a flat tire or a mechanical breakdown, you can get the everyday plan for $30 a year and get picked up, rescued.
You could do the Colt Trail. You could be out in St. Margaret's Bay and give us a call. Yeah. And in one sentence, what do you think share the road really means?
I think it means making space on the road for all the different kinds of people that are using the road, whether it's people walking or cycling, or
however
driving,
you choose to get around,
or taking the bus.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is there anything else you wanted to tell us today, or?
Oh, I know. Yes, we talked about Cycling Guide.
Yes.
But the big news is that we're going to be launching it province-wide this summer.
Oh, that's fun.
So it'll actually be available and useful whether you're in Sydney or Yarmouth or Truro or Wolfville.
Because there's cyclists everywhere, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. That's great to know. Nova Scotia. And while I'm thinking of it. Of course, we have CAA Atlantic members in all 4 Atlantic provinces. Do you know what's available? Are there any apps available in those other provinces?
We don't yet have Cycling Guide there.
Yeah.
But, there are apps like Strava or Ride with GPS.
Yes, I've seen
that
those.
can be helpful for planning a route.
For planning a route, yeah. Well, absolutely. We'll put that driving guide link in the show notes, and we'll do some recon and find out if there's what is in other provinces. But thank you so much for being here today and for talking about cycling in Halifax and cycling in general, and sharing the road. I hope this was a good conversation for you. This was a great conversation for me. I learned a lot.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed the talk.
Oh, good. All right. Well, take care. If you enjoyed this episode of the Let's Go Together podcast, be sure to join us wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss a conversation. If you'd like to learn more about the show or CAA membership and the services available across Atlantic Canada, you can visit atlantic.caa.ca. Thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time.